My name is Alexander Mankey, and this is a presentation on future business models for autonomous vehicles. This presentation is made for the Open Road course at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. Current transportation models will be transformed when autonomous vehicles become ubiquitous. Autonomous vehicles will enable transportation network companies, TNCs, to provide cost-effective, convenient mobility services. This will reduce the rate of personal car ownership, as the cost of ownership will exceed that of the mobility service. As autonomous mobility services become the norm, OEMs and TNCs will compete to become the fleet managers. At the same time, governments will overhaul the public transportation infrastructure to incorporate these new autonomous mobility services. There are currently four primary business models for personal transportation: personal ownership, pay-per-ride, rental, and public transportation. Each has their own advantages and disadvantages outlined on the following page. Personal ownership is always available and very convenient. It is the only model with potential brand distinction and emotional connection. However, there are capital costs and operating and maintenance costs. Pay-per-ride has no capital cost and is convenient in some circumstances. However, there is a high variable cost and limited use cases. Car rentals, there again, have no capital cost, but there are limited use cases. Those use cases incur a high cost, and there is inconvenient access to the cars. Public transportation is inexpensive, and there is no upfront capital, but it is slow and inconvenient to access. Recently, there has been a large rise in transportation network companies that are aiming to make the mobility services less expensive and more accessible. Uber and Lyft are the most prominent companies providing a pay-per-ride service in many urban areas. New car rental companies, both fleet-owned like Zipcar and peer-to-peer like Getaround, have attempted to mitigate common convenience issues with traditional car rental companies such as Hertz. However, this transition from personal ownership to mobility services has been slow, since personal ownership is still the most convenient and most affordable mobility option for most use cases with today's vehicle technology. As autonomous vehicles become ubiquitous in our transportation fleet, there will be a transition from personal ownership to autonomous vehicle fleets. Personal ownership will decline dramatically as other mobility options become more convenient and more cost-effective. Studies have shown that by participating in an autonomous shared mobility service, the number of cars necessary to serve a metropolitan area could be reduced by as much as 89%. Of course, there will still be use cases for which personal ownership may remain the norm. Ownership of a top brand vehicle can provide a sense of social status that is valuable to many individuals. Personal ownership will likely remain important for people in rural areas, where it will be more difficult for a network of vehicles to serve a diffuse population. A hybrid of personal ownership and car sharing may exist in which owners have a car for personal use but rent the car out when not in use. For many, there is a strong emotional connection to car ownership, providing a sense of accomplishment and/or freedom for car owners. Personal storage is an important benefit of car ownership that will be difficult to duplicate with a mobility service. Fleet-owned mobility services will become a more common transportation option as automation of the vehicle fleet improves in convenience and reduces cost. This category of business model will have several benefits. First, cost, no capital, maintenance, or operating cost. Convenience, there's no need for parking and the car is brought directly to consumers. Flexibility, there can be mass customization of transportation options. Customers can select based on speed, cost, quality, type, or brand of vehicle. Higher utilization, the fleet can be optimized to maximize utilization. This higher utilization can bring more revenue per vehicle, thereby improving the return on investment for costly automation technology. This will be a key driver for adoption of autonomous vehicles. The transition from personal ownership to autonomous mobility services will be largely driven by cost. The important metric to watch will be the relation between the capital costs and maintenance of personal car ownership with a decrease in cost per ride of autonomous mobility services. While today the cost per ride is cheaper for personal ownership, autonomous vehicles may take over in the future. For a more detailed analysis of this dynamic, please review Robin Pirani's video, Economics of Vehicle Ownership versus Ride Sharing. Within the fleet-owned mobility services category, there will be two primary payment models. Pay-per-ride will be similar to Uber's current pricing. There will likely also be a monthly membership model that may resemble the structure of a cell phone data plan today. Within these payment models, there will be a few ways to differentiate price, including surge pricing due to high demand, options for car quality, and ride sharing. All these differentiation techniques are currently being tested by Uber and Lyft in the form of surge pricing, UberX versus Uber Black, and UberX versus Uber Pool. As fleet-owned mobility services become a more popular business model, there will be an intense competition for the role of fleet manager. This presentation assesses the role of three primary players: OEMs, TNCs, and government. OEMs are the incumbent in the automotive market. However, their business models have almost exclusively consisted of manufacturing vehicles and has not focused on operations or maintenance of fleets. In order for OEMs to maintain their position in the market, they will need to prove they can be leaders in software development and fleet management. Software will play an increasingly vital role in the development of autonomous vehicles. It will be important to determine whether OEMs can develop their technology in-house or whether they will need to outsource their software development, thereby limiting their leverage in the market. Another strategy that has been pursued by OEMs is to acquire technology, evidenced by GM's billion-dollar acquisition of Cruise, a self-driving tech startup. OEMs must also develop the capability to manage an integrated consumer-friendly mobility service. While this is far from their core competency, some OEMs have begun experimenting in the field. Daimler has a 75% ownership stake in Car2Go, the world's largest car-sharing company. GM has invested $500 million in Lyft and is piloting Maven, a car-sharing subscription service. Transportation network companies have precisely the opposite core competencies of OEMs. Rather than manufacturing automobiles, they have built expertise in developing software to manage the fleets once deployed. Rental car companies excel in deploying vehicles to maximize utilization. Ride-sharing companies have become sophisticated in routing vehicles to serve a dispersed population. Thus far, TNCs have made little efforts to move into the realm of OEMs. Uber is the only such company that has branched out into the OEM space, retrofitting Volvos with internally developed autonomous driving technology. Another area that TNCs must become comfortable with is fleet maintenance. Will TNCs want to take on this responsibility? For more information, reference Suguru Azagami's video on maintenance and repair of autonomous vehicle fleets. The interaction between OEMs and TNCs will be important to monitor going forward. Each group has complementary capabilities in the near term, so it is likely that partnerships and alliances can help move the industry forward. However, at some point it is possible that OEMs and TNCs will attempt to take each other's positions. If this happens, some interesting scenarios could emerge. If OEMs are able to both develop their own technology and create a valued mobility service, will they stop selling their cars to the public and only offer mobility service in order to shut out competition from TNCs? Will TNCs attempt to circumvent the OEMs and go through contract manufacturers to develop their own fleet? For a more detailed analysis of this, please see Stephen Lewis's video, Will OEMs be Foxconned? Government will also play an important role through the regulation of the transportation industry. Today, affordable transportation is viewed as an important social good, and so many governments actively manage large public transportation networks. In some cases, municipalities have reached out to private enterprises to aid in this effort. In San Francisco, Chariot, a private shuttle service, was granted operating permits to help the city of San Francisco serve certain areas of the city. As personal car ownership diminishes and autonomous mobility networks become ubiquitous, it is possible that governments will contract with private companies to provide public transportation. The next question is whether there will be multiple mobility service providers or just one. Will it remain a competitive market in which private companies compete for their customers? Or, because economies of scale will drive up efficiency, will it make sense for a single entity to own the service? This would begin to resemble our regulated utilities here in California. Another option could be similar to deregulated electricity markets, in which entities own and operate the transmission and distribution system, while retail electricity providers buy and sell the electricity to customers. This would be analogous to a government-regulated entity owning the vehicle fleet, while Uber offers different products and pricing structures to the end customer. We do not yet know where we will end up, but it is sure to be an interesting road ahead. Please contact me if you'd like to discuss further. Thank you for listening.